Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. I'm so glad to have you back today. And if you're new here and visiting my channel for the first time, I do lots of DIYs, trash to treasure, furniture flips with my husband Chris, and thrifting adventures to fit into the farmhouse decor. So in today's video, I am co-hosting with Janny of Decor Easy and her lovely daughter Dyanne. And we are hosting a challenge, a farmhouse DIY challenge, and all that we ask is that you put an animal in it, whatever you consider a farm animal to be, and that is all, just a home decor item that's farmhouse, and put an animal in it. And so in this challenge, I took 3 thrifted items, and I'm going to be making them over, kind of like a little trash to treasure. And so I will just get along with the video and show you what items I made over. So here's my first thrifted item that I'm going to be making over. I think it may be like a towel rack. I just really like the shape of it. I like that round top. So for my next one, I just have this is not like solid wood, so I probably wouldn't use it as a stool, more as a decorative riser. So I just like the round shape. So for my third item, I just fell in love with this little $3 chimney cupboard looking. I think it's super cute in a kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom. I just really thought it was sweet. So of course, the first thing I have to do is remove any stickers that are on any of the items. So the first thing I need to do is get this artwork sanded down because it was hand painted, so that means that it's raised. So what I will be doing to it would be bumpy if I did not sand it smooth. And then on this piece, I couldn't remove the towel bar, and so I have to hand sand underneath it to get that raised paint off. And then I'm going to be taping off on the back of this because I'm going to have to paint the sides, and I don't want to have to paint the back. This back is pretty pristine, so I just want to tape off there so I don't make a mess of it when I'm trying to paint the sides. So now for this little stool piece, it's a paper overlay, so I'm just going to try to sand off as much as I can. So what that paper did not show is that you could see that it must have had a plant on it, so water spilled. So I'm going to be spraying it with some shellac to make the surface even to be able to accept paint. So now for this little cupboard, I'm going to be removing all the hardware. And this hardware for some reason was almost even rusted, so I don't know if it had gotten wet. And then there was a splatter of something all over this. I know you probably think maybe it looks decorative, but it wasn't. It was raised. You can tell that something had splattered and stained this piece. So after removing all the hardware, I'm going to give it a sand with some 220 in hopes that I can remove that splatter. And then what I didn't notice before sanding is that some of the nails were starting to come out. So I needed to go back in and get those hammered down. Definitely the sander didn't like those raised nails. So I thought the inside of this little cupboard was perfect. It did not need other than cleaned. So I'm going to tape off as much as I need to so I don't accidentally get paint on there. So it's kind of you just kind of figure out where you think you're going to be painting so your brush doesn't touch it. So after cleaning the hardware off, I just cleaned it with some crud cutter. It wasn't really that dirty. I'm just going to spray it with my Rust-Oleum flat black. And then for the other 3 items that I'm going to paint, I'm going to get them cleaned up with crud cutter too. Even though I know I sanded them, you still want to make sure that your surface is nice and prepped, that your items accept the paint well. So now I have them all laid out and they're all ready to get their first coat of my black undercoat because I'm going to be painting these items white, but I always do a black undercoat because I like the way it sands and distresses. And I know I don't usually show you too much of how I paint, so I usually do 2 coats of the black undercoat, and then after I've gotten all my black done, I'm going to be painting with my Kills paint and primer in my flat white, and then it takes 2, 3, 4 coats. When it comes to the white, I mean, you can kind of see the black through it, and that's not what you want to see. You want to see that when you distress it. So I mean, how much can you watch me paint? But so that's why I don't really show a lot of me just painting. So then on each item, after I've gotten as many coats as it takes to cover it, I go back in with my 220, and I like to hand sand, and then I kind of really concentrate on the edges. That way the black will show through, and I know a little bit of the wood grain because that's what I want. That's the part of the distressing that I really like. A little bit of the black and some of the natural wood shows through, and then I do sand the entire piece to make it nice and smooth. And I mean, you don't really see the brush marks, but you can kind of feel them, so I like them to be smooth. And I do this before I do the stencil. And so then after I get this front of it sanded, I'm going to remove the tape off the back, and there's going to be like a little sharp edge from where the paint has dried, so I'm going to sand that. I don't want that sharp. I don't want it accidentally scratching up somebody's wall when they hang it. So I'm going to just take the time to take the sandpaper and get rid of that little sharpness. So now all three of my items are ready to be stenciled. So this is the point when I realized that I just could not stencil that little cabinet. So like I said, I thrift lots of little signs. So I had this flag one that was just a paper overlay that I had sanded down. So I'm going to be making one of my 3 signs and stenciling on this instead of that little cabinet. I'm just going to leave that just white. So I found this image on Pinterest, and I am going to try and copy it for the towel rack signage. So I'm going to be using my Silhouette Cameo, and I'm going to go in and get my rooster design that I knew that I had, and I just want the rooster, and I didn't need all his other stuff, so I got my rooster. I deleted all the rest of that stuff that I did not need. And then I'm going to go back in and click on my rooster. I'm going to flip him in the direction that I need him to go, and then I'm going to spin him so he's the right way for my stencil. So then to make the little circles, I don't have the exact, but I do have this label that has these dots. So I'm going to separate this dot circle out and use it to go around my rooster. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to click on the whole thing and ungroup it and take away the pieces and parts that I don't need, keeping the little dotted circle. And then I need to group this back in together, but it did not let me group it, so I had to convert it to path. I'm learning this machine right along with you all. So now I can take my dotted circle and put it over my rooster. I need to make that smaller to fit. And then I'm gonna need to take the bottom dots off of this so it can have that straight line. So I have to try to ungroup it, but then when I ungrouped it, it just took the 2 pieces apart. So then I had to release it from the compound path so I could get rid of each of the dots at the bottom that I wanted to. So now I need to regroup that back together, so I have to convert it back to the compound path so I can move that whole image down so I can do my wording. And then for the stars, I just have this in my design, so I'm just going to use these stars, and then it just copies and pastes on there, and then I'm going to make it smaller, and then I'm going to bring it up and just release it so I could release all these images so that I can delete all the stars that I don't want and just use a single star. And then instead of going through that all again, I'm just going to click on it and hit duplicate, so now I have 2 identical size stars. So this is the font that I thought looked as similar as I wanted. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. And it's the font that I use for pretty much all of my lettering on this stencil. And then this font is what I use for the established 1804. So to do the small lettering, I need to make a long box for it to go on. I find that if I try to type out a long, it goes down to the next word. It separates my words. And so I've learned that if I make this long rectangular box and I do where I grab onto my lettering and follow the line, it stays in the place that I want, and then I can make it the size that I need and everything stays grouped together. Trial and error, this is what I've learned. And then I need to ungroup the two pieces because now they have become one, and then I can ungroup them, delete the box, and then size my sentence to what I need it to be for my stencil. So you can see why people definitely just buy stencils off of Etsy, because it is a lot of work, but I wanted to share with you because I like to make my products cost efficient, and that's why I bought a silhouette, and now I have it that I can get it ready to cut. So I promise you my next stencil is not going to be quite as complicated. So I am going to be doing the little round stool now, and I just want this little pig. So I went in and grabbed this stencil, you know, this image that I had, and I just want the pig. So I'm trying to turn him, which is always the easiest thing using a mouse, and then delete what I do not want from this image. And to make my words go around this circle to fit onto this stool, I did kind of the same concept as that square. I made a circle, I wrote out the lettering that I wanted to do, and I kept having to go back and forth until I got the spacing I needed. So I needed to make my circle bigger, or or smaller, and then try to figure out my placing. You just have to keep playing with it, and then when you get it the way that you want, you ungroup it so you can delete that circle, and then I can put my cute little pig in the middle. And then I did use a little established day and a date, and I actually used the same font as I used for the previous one, because that first stencil was so complicated. I didn't want to make these other ones so complicated, as we all are trying to learn these machines together. So when I put it into my cut, I could tell that my pig was not highlighted red, which means it was not going to cut it. So I had to go back out into my design, and then I had to release it from the compound path so it was highlighted red, because if it's not highlighted red, when you get to your cut point, it will not cut out. So for my third stencil, I'm just gonna plain and simply use just one of the images that I had just purchased. So we're just getting easier as we go along, and so all I have to do is rotate this and size it to what I need for that third board. So here's all my stencils all made out, all weeded and all ready to be placed using transfer tape. Well, I'm actually have been using clear contact paper to adhere these to their boards and get them all painted up. So here I am just using the contact paper and really trying to make sure that I get all my images on it. And I reuse my contact paper over and over again, especially when I'm using it as a transfer to transit from the mat to the item. And you know, the round's so much fun trying to get it center and measuring. So I won't necessarily torture you with all of that. And you know, just do it as best as you can. It's, you know, perfectly imperfect is what I always say. So I definitely lucked out on this image stencil. It almost fit the board perfect, as long as I made sure that my bottom line and the other line were matched up. I knew I would be centered. And the same thing for this. I just kind of measured for my little sides, made sure that my circle points were even and that they were even in between before the towel bar, and then just really rubbed to make sure that, you know, none of the paint was going to bleed under. So now for all three stencils, I'm going to be using the Apple Barrel Multi-Use in black, and I'm going to be applying it with a makeup sponge that I get at the Dollar Tree, and then I'm just going to do a dabbing technique. You don't want to smush and get too much paint onto that makeup sponge, so you just kind of, you know, just little dabs, and then I'm going to be doing the same thing, and I usually give them 2 coats. Now I find the best way, because I do use the permanent vinyl on these for stenciling, or sometimes I do use contact paper, the Duck brand. I like that brand, but I heat it up with a blow dryer, and that kind of releases that sticky so it doesn't pull off the paint that I spent so many coats painting before I even got to the stenciling part. Just be careful, sometimes it is a little bit hot, and so as you see, it just kind of melts that and it just pulls it off easily, and then I don't have to worry about it ripping the paint or pulling the paint off that I don't want removed. So now I take them into my garage, and then I use a 220 sandpaper, and then I kind of like that. I know I just painted that fresh black 2 coats, but I like to distress it. I like it to look like it's been there for a while. And then I like to finish them up with a fresh coat of the Varathane finishing wax that just seals that paint in and gives them a nice finish. And then for this one sign, I need to replace that wire because that's how it's going to hang. And then I'm just going to use my needle nose pliers to make the curlicues that keep the wire in place. And nope, I didn't forget about this sweet little chimney cupboard. It's just so super. Why are things when they're small even cuter? But my husband Chris is just returning the hardware back to it after he has waxed it. And so it's just going to be just like a sweet little mini version of a chimney cupboard. So in case you forgot what these thrifted items that I found to remake for this challenge, what they started off looking like. Remember, they were unwanted thrifted items and I was happy to give them new life and fit them into my farmhouse decor and to be able to include a cute little farm animal to go along with them. Were you surprised when I didn't end up putting a stencil on that little cabinet? It was just so super sweet, it just needed to stay white. So which one of these 4 pieces was your favorite? Was it my last minute decision to repaint this flag picture into a hometown creamery, or the cute little cabinet that just got to stay white, or this super cute little pig stool, or was it this towel rack that you could actually hang a hook and also hang greenery off of it if you'd like? Just give me a quick comment below of what one was your favorite. And I'd like to thank Janny and Dyanne for hosting, coming up with this idea. I'm not going to take credit for the idea. It was all their idea and just asked me to co-host along. So again, thank you Janny and Dyanne for coming up with this farmhouse DIY and the animal edition, throwing an animal into the mix. And I will have her channel down in my description. So I thank you so much for watching today's video, and remember this was a challenge, so that means there will be a playlist down in my description box of all who participated in this challenge, and I can't wait to see what farmhouse DIYs and what animals they chose to put into their farmhouse decor. And so again, I thank you so much for watching, and if you're not already a member of my YouTube family, please consider hitting that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to comment which one of these Trash to Treasure farmhouse DIY with an animal flips was your favorite.